Hello. Today we're going to talk about the 2015 video game Bloodborne. I don't know about you, but I like a good scare, and that often, but not always, comes from the genre known as horror. There are lots of different subsections of this genre, but my personal favourites are gothic and cosmic horror. Lucky for me, Bloodborne is a fantastical blend of both, and it's not just got that going for it either, oh no. While every gothic and cosmic horror trope is there, it is also punishingly difficult. It's immersive, atmospheric, and yes, genuinely scary. For all these reasons and more, it's already been named as a modern classic, and I certainly don't disagree. But while it has certainly got everyone talking, that discussion seems to have focused mainly on its influences and its story, but, surprisingly, not many of its themes. One theme of this game that is very significant, no one seems to want to talk about. It's also the theme that elevates this game from excellent to one-of-a-kind brilliant. Well, what is it, you may well ask? We'll get to that. But before we do, let's take a quick look at the game and the proliferation of criticism about it, specifically here on YouTube. Bloodborne is a video game about killing monsters. That about covers it. It shares its DNA with the classic Castlevania video game series, with its reliance on exploration to progress, leveling up, excruciating difficulty, and that amped up gothic aesthetic. The lion's share of discussion and criticism about the game centres mainly on these factors. Much has also been made of what it owes to classics of the gothic horror genre, like Frankenstein and Dracula, and to the modernist horror of H.P. Lovecraft. Its lore has been pored over by countless commentators, and justifiably so. The narrative design and environmental storytelling are exemplars of the form. Unfortunately, very little of Bloodborne is looked at beyond its influences, mechanics, and story. Essential elements of a video game, to be sure, but, to be honest, this is all pretty unchallenging stuff, and it's certainly not covering its best attribute. Horror often tackles taboo subjects in a direct fashion. Dracula is about class. Frankenstein is about morality and science. Stories about werewolves discuss masculinity. Scream is about Americans' fear of other Americans. Again, there are countless channels on YouTube with lots of video essays exploring the subtext of the horror genre. A particular favourite of mine is Cold Crash Pictures' video on Candyman. Check that one out. There is one topic, however, that gets overlooked. Largely because YouTube, and the way the algorithm punishes the topic because a scary amount of YouTube commenters actively attempt to halt its discussion. Yet it's precisely this topic that makes Bloodborne one of the best video games ever made. So, let's let the proverbial cat out of the bag and point out that Bloodborne is a feminist game. I know, it's a big word, isn't it? To those of you who haven't immediately clicked off or charged into the comments section all capsing phrases like not all men and keep politics out of gaming, I say welcome. Let's talk about this incredibly on-the-nose theme that Bloodborne explores so well. Bloodborne is a story that, in its summation, is about the female reproductive system. This isn't a secret. As many others have pointed out, this is dominant text, not merely subtext. The lore of Bloodborne goes that Queen Yharnam lost her child, which sets the horrors of the game in motion. This is reflected in the Great Ones only being able to have stillborn children. The efforts of the city of Yharnam, the church, the nobles of Cainhurst, the scholars at Byrgenwerth, have all been either an attempt to help or hinder the surrogacy of a child. this is established law inside and outside the game. That, like all From Software games, is vague and can be missed or ignored depending on your level of involvement. What can't be missed, however, is the game repeatedly beating you over the head with its references to reproduction, surrogacy, and birth. Whether it's the child of Father Gascoigne being left orphaned because you killed her father, you monster, or the orphanage in Upper Cathedral Ward crawling with malformed children, or the fact you must find 3 of the 4 umbilical cords to get the real ending, one of which you can obtain by following a prostitute into a sewer where she has given birth to a monster child she didn't know she was pregnant with. Which is delightful. Or if you dig deep enough into the Chalice dungeons and fight Queen Yharnam, her white gown drenched in blood in the area of her uterus, you hear the cry of a baby. In fact, with the right level of insight, you can hear a baby cry throughout the game. One of the last bosses you fight in the game is a great one, known only as Murgo's Wet Nurse. A wet nurse is a woman who allows a child that is not her own to suckle from her breast when they are born. And then there's the not in any way subtle name for the last level of the game, the Nightmare of Mensis. The word mensis, you see, shares the same etymology as menstruation, both derived from the Latin word for month. So, from insemination to pregnancy to surrogacy to birth to the loss of a child, this is a game about women's bodies and reproduction. Just like that Key and Peele sketch, if this is making you uncomfortable, good. Women's menstruation is eldritch horror to a T. Once a month, you bleed out of an orifice, for a week, accompanied by cramps, tenderness in sensitive areas of your body, erratic bowel movements, and a hormone rush that causes your mental health to deteriorate. It is your own body, physically and psychologically, torturing you, every month, for the majority of your adult life. Truly, mensis is a nightmare. Menstruation as we know it now is not what it once was. On an evolutionary scale, animals shouldn't have need to have that many periods. To ensure propagation of the species, female animals are impregnated fairly regularly. If you are with child for 9 months of a year, once a year, periods become less common. It is only since the invention of contraception and the change in societal expectations that women are merely breeding machines, well, a change in some people's expectations anyway, means periods are now more common. On the face of it, this seems like a net positive, as ostensibly it gives women more control over their reproductive systems. The invention of the pill was championed by the women's liberation movement after all. But just like the fact we keep hens in cages to literally harvest their periods, menstruation has instead become another form of control. For instance, if men got periods, it would have been cured centuries ago. Medical science has an intrinsic male bias to the point where medical early warning signs for a heart attack are misdiagnosed for women. They don't experience the same tingling in the left arm and twinge between the shoulder blades that men do, because they have a uterus, and that requires more blood and therefore alters these symptoms. Periods are an example of the horrors visited upon all women by nature and by nurture. Bloodborne forces you to experience this, albeit in a more abstract way. The Nightmare of Mensis begins straight off the bat by having spears and blood shoot out from inside you without you knowing why. You lose health and will die unless you take steps to mitigate the status effect. Typically, you change into armour with high frenzy resistance or take some literal sedatives to soothe the pain. This is to say nothing of the optional objective in that level of flushing the source of that pain down into a dark pit if you want to stop the status effect. Something you might liken to an egg being flushed from the uterus, say. The majority of video essays I have seen about Bloodborne barely even address this theme. It's not to say criticism about the game is bad, far from it, Folding Ideas, Cool Ghosts, H Bomber Guy, Super Bunny Hop, and many others have all done excellent dissections of Bloodborne's story and mechanics. But generally, any mention of the overriding theme of women's bodily autonomy and reproductive rights is, if not ignored, completely overlooked. And when we say overriding, we do mean this theme is overt. Even when Bloodborne is not explicit, these themes are maintained. In the most basic terms, the game is about thrusting huge weapons into bodies that gout fountains of blood when you hit them. You thrust your weapon and even have a thrust defense level. Or how about the little ghost zombies at the beginning with the vaginal mouth? The origin of the old blood that sets the fall of Yharnam in motion is not explained. It is discovered in the Chalice dungeons, yes, but what blood is it? The likelihood is that this is the menstrual blood of a Great One. There is evidence to suggest Egyptians drank menstrual blood for its supposed life-giving properties, a practice with eerie corollaries in stem cell research. Stem cells being a life-saving and life-changing substance currently derived from umbilical cords and the cells of dead fetuses. And then there's the doll. Remember that sentient sex doll Gurman created, who provides you with all you desire? The same doll that asks one of the most profoundly existential questions in the game. Hunters have told me about the church, about the gods and their love, but do gods love their creations? I am a doll, created by you humans. Would you ever think to love me? Of course, I do love you. Isn't that how you've made me? It's a question explicitly asking about the reciprocal love of a child and a parent, or, in some cases, its lack. Other women in the game either kick your ass, like Vicar Amelia, or kick other people's ass, like Eileen the Crow. Women in this game have agency, and are generally indifferent to you throughout. In addition, whatever ending for the game you get, they all show you how little agency you actually had, controlled as you were by forces beyond your comprehension. A lot like, say, a biological clock, for instance. Whether you like it or not, Bloodborne is explicitly and implicitly about women's issues. And if that makes you uncomfortable, that's sort of the point. This is a game that puts you through the experience of women's pain. Be that the pain of childbirth, the lifelong battle of attrition with menstruation, or the all-consuming grief of losing a child. Pain has become a defining quality of the female experience, both biologically and sociologically. The creators of Bloodborne know this and channel this unremitting horror into a better recognised and accepted setting. Let's be honest, video games audiences skew male, and given the backlash against anyone who looks at the medium from a woman's perspective, men don't seem to want to know about the female experience. Making a game about female pain and selling it to boys is an inspired decision, but it isn't clear whether it was successful or not. On the one hand, the complete lack of acknowledgement about this plotline and theme highlights the lack of awareness and failure to enlighten those that could benefit most from understanding it. On the other hand, seeing hundreds of men unconsciously refer to the nightmare of menses like they're repeating a mantra at a Misogynists Anonymous meeting feels like a win for feminism. I had heard once that cosmic horror doesn't work for people of colour because they face existential threats every day in real life. The fact Lovecraft was deeply racist adds further credence to this belief. But equally, people of colour and women's experience is so alien to men, it takes a subgenre like cosmic horror for us to feel some of the existential dread and constant pain that people without our privilege suffer from. Even if you know some of the story or lore of the game before playing, it is still genuinely shocking and deeply disturbing in that it forces you to experience some of the worst horrors inflicted upon half the population of the planet. Horrors I will never fully comprehend. In a very real sense, we should all fear the old blood. Today we learned Bloodborne is feminist. Menstruation is painful. Women's biology defines society's expectations of them. And that male commentary is largely biased towards male experience to the point of overlooking glaringly obvious plot aspects and themes in cultural works. Be sure to note this down in your exercise books, as these points will come up in later videos. Thanks for watching.